Most of the bosses in A Link Between Worlds are rehashed versions of the ones you find in A Link to the Past, though there are some new ones as well.
We will try to rank these as we always do. Which ones are more fun, well crafted, cool looking, and so on.
But again, we will also compare them a bit to A Link to the Past. When we face bosses we have faced before, we do want a few changes. So we're also gonna rank them based on how they hold up when compared.
Again, thanks to PackAttack04082 for letting us use his footage. We're the Also Triforce, I'm Owner 1.
And I'm Owner 2, and join us through our A Link Between Worlds boss ranking.
One boss we have seen several times in the series is Moldorm. He was one annoying boss back in A Link to the Past. But how is he in A Link Between Worlds?
You could say that he's far from as annoying as in the SNES game, which is somewhat good. Getting knocked down from the platform only to walk upstairs and start the fight over is something many people have hated.
Even though it's nice to avoid falling down, it makes the fight a lot easier. And frankly, that makes the boss a bit more boring.
He is really easy to defeat, he looks and acts pretty much the same, and the fact that he appears even more times in the game than just the Tower of Hera makes it less unique. Because of this, Moldorm ends up at the bottom.
The House of Gales is a new dungeon when comparing this game to the game from the early 90s. It's placed in Lake Hylia, where no dungeon existed in the Light World, and it had wind puzzles and a new item. With this came a new boss, which wasn't all that great.
Margam is only the second or third boss, depending on which dungeon you take on first. It puts the tornado rod to good use, as you have to use it to get up into the air, land on top of it and attack the eye.
When it comes to the appearance, it's pretty much like that stack of discs in Snowhead Temple in Majora's Mask got an eye on top and came to life. It was stacked on more discs.
While that is pretty cool, the fight is pretty damn basic. The only item we really needed at this time was the bow and arrow, and he didn't even have the ability to merge into walls, so there weren't that many ways to fight him.
He has some attacks that can cover big parts of the very small room you find yourself in. Even though it's very easy and limited, the battle does get some points for allowing us to fight the villain himself, and of course for what followed after. Just like many of the soldiers around in Hyrule, Link got turned into a painting on the wall, but he was saved by that mysterious bracelet given by Ravio, allowing you to explore by the use of the game's main mechanic.
Out of all the bosses in the Dark World / Laurel, Arrghus is the one that's most similar to its earlier incarnation. Almost nothing changed in this battle, which is a bit disappointing.
It's still pretty much the same looking jellyfish with those small balls around it, that you have to pull off with the hookshot. Phase 2 is what's a bit different.
Instead of going ape shit around in the water, it will shoot lasers from its eye. But the lasers themselves isn't what's dangerous to Link, but the little spots in the water where the lasers hit.
Since there were very few differences to this boss, and because this one also appears as a mini-boss later in the game, it ends up on 10th place. You face Yuga once again, but the next time takes place in Hyrule Castle. This time, the battle is a bit more challenging and fun.
Yuga can now create 2 fake clones of himself, where only the real one is vulnerable. The room is bigger, and he's got some really sweet lightning attacks.
Though, it is easy to figure out which one's the real Yuga. Only one of them has fire on the painting brush.
And he is defeated rather quickly. Even though the battle is somewhat interesting, now that we also can hide in the walls with the merging ability, we did wish we could expect a tougher battle. But we guess that his power comes through when he reaches his goal. Next up is Darkstair. The appearance of this boss is different from its counterpart, Coldstair, and like the name implies, it's a lot darker. Inside the mountain, way high up above a pond of lava, we find a boss covered with ice.
Darkstair uses ice to defend itself, in addition to use some sort of lasers to form a triangle that will freeze Link if he gets trapped inside of it. The fire rod is very useful here, and we gotta be honest and say that this boss isn't too hard either.
We really do appreciate its look. It's very dark and has really cool colors. The fight isn't amazing in any way, but we think it's okay.
On 7th place we have a brand new boss and concept. There is a desert palace in this game as well, but it isn't reachable until you get to Lorule, even though it exists in Hyrule.
What makes this even cooler is that the boss itself, Zaganaga, is in Lorule, meaning that you switch between the worlds after the dungeon, before the boss battle.
Zaganaga is a giant plant with 5 eyes that moves around in sand. In the sand there are placed many pillars, and it will dig itself out of these and move all around, while Link has to use the sand rod to raise the sand level and cross from platform to platform.
The boss is vulnerable at all times, so every time you get near it, you can attack it. It uses a huge beam as an attack and send out P-hats. It wasn't too hard, but it was fun to use the rod and make bridges between platforms, and we loved how we had to switch between the worlds to reach it. When Yuga succeeded in the first phase in this battle is very similar to Ganon from A Link to the Past, but without the torches and fire keys.
Here he fights you head on with the trident again, swinging it, using it to charge at you, even around again, and send some beams down to the ground.
He is pretty tough, he can do a lot of damage, and we had a bit of trouble with him. Clearly, as you can see in this footage, Hack Attack 04082 didn't have any trouble, so it might just be us.
It's a good phase for the final battle, making a good lead to the next and better phase. The Wall Master has been a type of enemy since the very first game in the series, and we have seen a few variations of it in a few games. In this game, we got to see a boss version of it.
Knuckle Master is a giant armored hand with a big eyeball on it. It will mostly slam down on you, breaking the tiles on the floor and creating holes. Sometimes it will throw a punch at you that you have to avoid to let it crash into the wall.
That's when the eyeball is open for attack. It will get more aggressive throughout the battle, and the floors will just get more and more holes. That's why you have to merge into the wall to avoid it.
The Knuckle Master was an interesting battle. Not only is it a unique boss when we compare the two games, but to see a Wall Master boss was pretty cool too. Once again, the boss inside Turtle Rock is a turtle. Other than the name, Grinex has some other changes, mainly the area where we fight him and the removal of the ice element.
Grinex is all about fire in this battle. First it will swim through the lava below, and you have to fight it by using the ice rod. Sometimes it will send up a huge beam of fire. After damaging it enough, it'll get on the platform with you, where it'll stretch out its head to bite you, and withdraw into his shell to do some spin attacks.
He can do a lot of damage and is still pretty cool looking, even though we thought Grinex was even cooler. It's not like the removal of the ice element was the only thing different, but the whole battle changed a lot. We like how it ended up.
The Dark Palace had an awesome boss in A Link to the Past. And that doesn't change here, even though its appearance is rather different, and the way to defeat it changed as well.
As a replacement for the Helmasaur King, we have the Gemasaur King. First of all, its appearance is pretty damn cool. It kinda has the same look as the Helmasaur King, but its shell is full of gems, or actually rupees. Not bad to have a boss that can spare you some change, huh?
The first phase is about blasting the shell off with bombs, which isn't too hard. But it's the second phase that's interesting. Everything turns dark, and you can only see its glowing eyes. While it's dark, it will run around like crazy, and you have to light lanterns in order to damage it.
It's like they took the two torches from the Ganon battle and placed them here instead. It actually works too. It's not really hard to fight this boss, but this was a nice twist, and we love the appearance. Not to mention, the way to lure it out was pretty damn awesome as well. Blind was a pretty damn awesome boss in A Link to the Past. The way it was introduced was unique, the battle itself was stressful as hell, and it was a pretty damn challenging fight. We don't feel that the challenge is really high when it comes to the bosses in this game, but the changes they made with the boss in the Thieves' Hideout wasn't bad at all.
They gave Blind a different look. He's now bigger and got 2 arms carrying a sword and a shield. This is Stall Blind, and he looks awesome. The fight is also pretty cool, as nothing seems to hurt him when you attack by standard methods, but when you notice that you can merge onto his shield, you see an opening.
He will pull his hand back while looking for you, allowing you to get out of the shield and attack him from behind. It's creative to use the merging ability in this way. He can attack you by swinging his sword or spew out some shadowy stuff.
After the first phase, he throws away his shield, not allowing you to repeat the same strategy. Now he becomes a bit more aggressive and starts slicing vertically with his sword and doing spin attacks. His whole body is still open for attacks, but when damaged enough he will detach his head and let it hover around by itself, spewing out more of that shadowy stuff.
Adding
Well, once again a phase from the final boss takes our first place. The first phase against Yuga Ganon was good, but the next one was even better. Yuga betrays Princess Hilda and wants to claim the Triforce as his own.
In this phase, we have a decently fast-paced game of Dead Man's Volley, a fighting style that is very common in the Zelda series. Zelda hands and not special at all, it's how the rest of the fight plays out that makes it.
Even if it was obvious to many of you out there, neither one of us actually expected to fight Ganon on the walls. The merging ability was used from the moment after the first boss battle, and still, we didn't think we would be fighting Yuga Ganon as paintings. This phase wasn't difficult,
but it certainly was creative. All 3 times you were there, you had to shoot him with an arrow, but you had to do it in different ways. One straight on, one that it blocks so that you have to go behind and shoot there, and one last time where nothing works, so you have to shoot the other way for it to go all around the room.
This was such a cool, funny and creative idea that we just had to make this number 1. Thanks for watching.